Oh man, I am so excited to be with my good friend, my longtime friend, Pastor Toby Slough. You and Micah have built a great church here in the Denton, Argyle. Kind of what area of Texas would you consider this, in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area? What part of this?
The far north side.
Far north side of the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex area. And transitioned to church, and now leading Gobi Ministries and amazing things. But more importantly, we have been friends for probably 20 years.
Yep.
Friends, pastored a great church, built a great church, transitioned to church. But friendship has always been important to us. We've got some good mutual friends. And man, I'm excited about the season that you're in. I mean, what a great season.
Me too. I wasn't for a while. I had to work my way into it, but I'm telling you, this is the greatest season.
When did you plant Cross Timbers?
January 2000.
So 2000?
Yep, went in the back of that bar out there in Justin, broke all the ARC rules. We took a left off the gravel road to get to it, kind of deal. But so 22 and a half years.
Led pastor of that church for 22 years. And what did you do before that? Were you doing, tell me what you did before you launched the church?
I pastored a church in Southlake, a small church. Came to it, it split in half, and went in there and pastored it for 9 years there.
For 9 years?
Yeah, and then felt the call to get out of any kind of denominational world and just really, just wanted to reach people.
Launch a new work.
Yeah.
And when you came out here 22 years ago, I bet people thought you were going into the country, you're going to Oklahoma.
Every pastor friend I had, except for one, told me I'd lost my mind.
Coming out here.
Yeah, there weren't enough rooftops. But, Dino, it's one of those things that it doesn't have to make sense if you know God is in it. And I just felt, every time I would think about any other place, I felt like the Lord was saying, no, this is where I want you to go.
And now the world is around you.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're almost the epicenter of the Metroplex, Texas Motor Speedway.
Because I love when I go to the facility, one of your campuses, you could see the Texas Motor Speedway fall off in the distance. I would always describe people where you were based on that location. And always had a heart for people. You always had a heart for outreach. Built a church around that. Built a church for others. Built a church to reach people. Led that for 22 years. And then tell me about a transition. What triggered that? What happened with you saying, man, I think I want to see this church go to another level, and I want to go do some other things that are in my heart. What's that been like? Because a lot of people, and that's hard to even imagine.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to imagine because retirement is so in our vocabulary and in our way of thinking. I had no desire to retire. I just knew I had one more season in me, and I wasn't sure what it was. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I just felt like, man, if I'm going to have one more push in me, I want to do it with some gas in the tank.
Yeah.
And, so I was 56 years old when we first began to talk about my succession. And I knew once we began that process, I'd been training some young leaders here and felt like the Lord had raised one up that was going to be the next guy. So I knew the guy was going to be. Wasn't sure when it was going to happen. And the pandemic hit. And I was busy online like everybody else trying to keep us going.
In studios.
Yeah. Building this kind of thing and doing some cooking with Tobe shows.
That's
and
right. You were cooking. Yeah, I love it. You're a great cook.
And it revived my entrepreneurial spirit. After 22 years, you get to a size where it's a lot more managing what you have than stepping out in a new frontier. And that even made me more certain it was time. And so at the end of the pandemic, I felt like, man, we were starting over. Everybody was starting over. And I walked out and said to Mike, I said, why would I try to write this next chapter? If it's a new chapter, I need to hand it to him and let him start to write the chapter.
Wow. What did she say? What was her, because she's on her own journey. As you're, planning the church, starting a church, pastoring people, building teams, loving people, adding campuses, all the things we've learned together. You and I learned a lot together through Leadership Network and all our friends, hanging out with them. A lot of similarities in Dream Center, in outreach expressions. But then our wives are on a different journey in the middle of what we're all doing together.
Right.
So how was that for her?
She was so supportive. She never got her identity out of being my wife at Cross Timbers. That just wasn't her thing. 21 years, Dino, she worked in the nursery.
God, that's amazing.
For 21 years.
Because
that's what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it was funny, in the early days, people would say, I don't even know your wife. I'd say, go get you some back in their nursery, you know. But she knew, she so believed that, you know, I don't deal that God card very often.
Sure.
She knew that it was the Lord was stirring in me. She said, let's go do it. Let's go for it together. And I think she was worried a little bit about me, like finding my next. Like I don't sit around very well. That's not good for me or her. And she was a little concerned about that. But as that began to happen,
sure,
you know, I think she had to grieve just like me. We went through a grieving process.
That's good.
I said to my counselor, I said, why am I so sad? I picked this. And he said, well, you idiot, you're grieving. Have you ever grieved? And I said, not
we
really.
normally don't try not to grieve.
Yeah, I hadn't lost a family member. You know, I hadn't been through that. Well, then it all made sense. And so we just kind of walked the process and grieved together. And because Jesus loves me, he gave me something else to do quickly and let my lifelong journey culminate in this season. And so we got so engulfed in that. You know, I always tell guys that are thinking about this season.
I bet you're getting calls.
All the time. Guys I've never heard of.
Yeah, I bet.
They say, what's the number one thing? I said, you have to move towards something and not be moving away from something.
That's so good. It seems like if you're moving away, you're always looking back, or you're going to go back to it.
Oh, yeah.
And you return back to that thing that that is that calling, is that, and not letting that transition into. So 21 years, 22 years leading the church, you and your wife, your kids, all those kind of things. So you know there's someone there that you feel like, man, I want to hand this baton to. Tell me real quick, what was that timeline, and give me one lesson you learned from that someone would need to know.
Yeah, it was, again, pandemic kind of jacks up the timeline.
That's true.
But it was basically from the time I told him that I felt like he was the guy, it was about 16 months until we handed, and quite honestly.
But how long had he been on staff?
He'd been with me for 7 years.
Okay, yeah.
And I had a team of younger guys that I was investing in. Twice a month we were having lunch. We were talking about leadership, teaching, all those kind of things. And so he was family, you know. One of the things, I think the reason we love each other so much is we so highly value family.
Sure.
And these guys were family to me. And so he and I, the biggest lesson I learned was the importance of regular communication. You know, when you get away from it and things change, there's this movie that starts playing in your head, right? And
God, that's true in everything.
Right. And so if I talk to Joe, if he and I got together, he and I have had no issues. But when we talk honestly about how he's doing, about how I'm feeling, that movie stops. And it's just, that's my son of faith that I love, man. And he loves me.
That works in a marriage.
Yeah.
Works with your kids.
Yeah.
Works with your team.
Right.
I mean, you know, so it's really just, y'all have just had real honest communication through the process. And so there was no guessing what someone else is thinking, which to me is the train wreck of the potential of good relationships.
Yep.
Which you said is that space. So you've just had constant communication. So the transition happens, and then out of your own life story, there's a kind of a Toby 2.0.
Yeah. Which
I think is interesting, because when you shared with me what you feel like is on your heart for this next season of your life, it was like, oh, you're gonna now, go harvest snow crabs in the Bering Sea. Oh, wait a minute, now you're gonna be a train conductor.
Right.
Now, when you said it, it was like, oh, of course that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to me. So tell us then this new season.
Yeah, to understand where we are, you have to understand where I've been.
Yeah.
And it was now almost 30 years ago that I was diagnosed with an anxiety and panic disorder. In a season, by the way, Dino, nobody had ever heard these words.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? Like
that's 90s.
No, nervous breakdown is all I'd heard. I didn't know anybody.
You're right. You're losing it.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody that was seeing a counselor. No one that I knew of. I had to drive the other side of Fort Worth to find a Christian counselor. And but what happened was I got so bad that I basically tried to take my life one day, and it scared me that I would get to that point. And so that's when I reached out and just began this journey that really nobody knew about except our church family. It wasn't It wasn't something that I was talking about when I traveled, but we built cross timbers out of kind of the recovery movement because I was in the middle of all of that, learning. And so at our 20-year birthday, I wrote a book that I did not want to write, but my wife basically looked at me and said, you need to do this. Of all the lessons I'd learned in 20 years of battling anxiety and panic. And the light came on for me about 7 years in when I discovered that freedom wasn't what I thought it was. I thought freedom was I would never have a panic attack. I would never be anxious. But, through a lot of study, a lot of prayer, a lot of counseling, I discovered that freedom wasn't the absence of those things. It was connecting to a power greater than yourself in the middle of those things. Yeah. So when the target for me changed, my life started changing. And so I wrote the book, and we ended up writing a kid's book, which is a whole story out of the end of that book about a goby fish in Hawaii that swims up these mountain streams off the Big Island. As it swims, it gets to these waterfalls, and its bottom jaw grows out because it gives it leverage to catch it literally jumps from rock to rock and lives second half of its life at the top of those pools. And when I read it, I thought, that's my life. It's the struggle that made me who I am.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that exploded. We had no idea during the pandemic how kids were going to battle for their mental health, and how what we had to offer was weighted blankets and fidget spinners. That's all that was out there.
Fidget spinners.
Yeah, and so I said, well, what if the stuff I've learned, the stuff I taught my kids, the stuff I'm doing with my grandkids, I could start teaching parents, because adults who don't want to deal with their own issues in this area, they're all in on something for their kids.
Yeah.
And so in a nutshell, that's how we got to the place of where we try to help families connect God's power to the very real issues that their kids are dealing with, and try to encourage parents, because we know that the greatest gift you can give your child is a healthy you. And so that's what we do.
Planting a church, there's anxiety. Mm-hmm. There's the stress of the marriage, the kids, all the logistics. You went through that. I went through that. And those are normal things. Those are normal things. There's going to be these normal. We're launching a campus where, now I'm leading a worship song. There's a 1,000 ways that this can hit you. But what you felt was not just normal. It was not just, man, this is something different. Yeah. I'm doing something afraid. I know Joyce Meyer talks about doing something afraid. You and I have talked about this. There was something. It got to the point where, it was paralyzing you.
Yes, controlling my life.
Controlling your life. And so then you realize, so what were those things that you learned out of the prayer, scripture, counseling, people, friends, that said, hey, these are the things that I learned and that have helped me with my mental health?
Well, a mutual friend that we have taught me the greatest lesson. Jacob Aranza, our friend, I called him one day because I was struggling. Yeah. And I said to him, hey, man, I can't get out of this cycle of thinking. And he said, go Google the 40 I Ams. And I hadn't even heard of the 40 I Ams. And I go Google, it's 40 statements in the Bible that who God says that you are. He said, write them on, go to the drugstore, get you some index cards, write them down and start saying them out loud. Word of faith, man.
Man, that's good.
And it sounded weird to me, but, brother, like, desperation is highly underrated. Like, and so I went and got those cards and wrote every one out by hand. And I have those cards with me everywhere I go, because I found that a huge part of what happens in the middle of anxiety and panic, depression, it's the isolation that'll get you, brother. Yeah. It's that little voice gets louder and louder that's telling you things that aren't true about who you are, but it feels true. And so you have to fight what you feel with what we know. Yeah. And so the 40 Ams are kind of foundational to what we do. Teaching people how to really rest is a part of it. I had to learn how to rest. Yeah, me too. Not ceasing from activity, but how to, really rest your soul. I had to learn I love the Message version of the Beatitudes. He says, come to me, all you are weary and heavy laden. The Message version says, I will teach you the unforced rhythms of grace. Wow. Right? So I think you have a rhythm, and I have a rhythm, and they're not the same rhythm.
Right.
But there's something that connects you to your Creator divinely, how God wired you up. And so, like, for me, it's cooking outside, which is, you know, some people it's running. It's like, no, I don't feel Jesus when I run. I feel Jesus when I quit, right? But for me, it's
about to see Jesus when I run.
Yeah. So it's building a big fire in a big smoker and cooking huge pieces of meat.
Yeah.
And it quiets my spirit. And so a huge part of what we teach people, you have to find,
you got to find, whether it's golf, fishing,
what quiets your
going to
spirit.
the beach, it's you know, reading,
Yeah.
it's all these woodwork, you know, working with your hands, all these different things.
So like to this day, Micah knows when I'm struggling. She sees me carrying out. It's just me and her, man. But I'm carrying out 2 briskets.
Shoulder.
Yeah, and I'm putting it on the smoker, but it's because I need that rhythm. So we help people discover their.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on, but there's, I think identity. Every issue we're dealing with in culture today comes down to an identity issue.
Yeah.
If you know who God created you to be, you can overcome anything.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
I'm an overcomer, Dino. But honestly, man, I don't like to overcome stuff.
Yeah.
The only way you can be an overcomer is have something to overcome.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so just teaching, I don't know if I've ever told you this, man, but, you know, word kind of got out because I did Life Today with James Robinson back in the early days, Cross Timbers.
Yeah.
And word kind of got out in our little circle that this was my battle. Dude, I have 400 pastors' phone numbers that have called me just struggling.
Wow.
And we have a deal, and the deal is, hey man, you can text me anytime because I'm not gonna have a ringer on. And 1 means, hey, I'm struggling. Will you pray for me? 5 is like, hey, 911, I'm really struggling.
Yeah, I'm jammed.
And I never get up a day. Rarely is there a day that I don't have 3 or 4 texts.
Yeah.
And what it shows me is, man, this is it's an epidemic, and just saying it, I think, takes a lot of the power away from it.
Yeah, it is true. When you think no one else is struggling with it, so the enemy's lying to you, and then once you begin to speak to it, the identity, those scriptures, all the truth overcomes the lie, friendship, accountability, the brotherhood, your family. It is amazing how freeing that becomes. And then you are able to enter into rest in those different expressions. Yeah. And, you know, because that is true. You know, you look around the world today, it's like, it's a tired world. Yeah. They're tired marriages. We got a lot of people leading the church that's tired.
Yeah.
And they're not recharging, they're not replenishing.
That's what we're finding everywhere we go around the country, literally coast to coast. Every culture imaginable out there I've been in, right? But there's some things that are in common, and one of them is we are tired and we're not sure what to do about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we are scared to death that if somebody really knows how we feel, they're going to think less of us. When the fact of the matter is, they're going to think more of us if we're
100%.
honest about where we are.
I think one of the best things I learned when I went through a tough season, and what I learned is don't be afraid to go 100% with someone.
Right.
I always went 95%. If I'm going to hold it close, Italian, just I can't let it. But man, the freedom of going 100% with someone, and then realizing when you are not well, when you're tired, when you're exhausted, when you have what Joyce Meyer says, stinking thinking.
Yep.
When you're thinking, and then being able to send the text, send up the flare. Communicate. Hey, man, pray for me. Hey, you got a minute to talk? Let me share with how I'm feeling right now. And I know that, it's been, and then the rhythm of rest.
Yeah.
Being able to rest and sleep, and create those healthy rhythms. So you write a lot about that now. You've written several books.
Yes.
Tell me about what that means to you and the resources that you're developing in helping people, because you don't want to hold on to it yourself.
No.
You're developing resources now to help people.
Yeah.
And all kinds, young pastors, parents are a big thing to you right now. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I took a year. I gave myself a year and said, I felt like the Lord said, hey, man, if you'll go add value and expect nothing in return for a year, I'll blow you away.
Wow.
And my heart has always been for church planners.
Yep.
For the little guy. That's who I'm for. I mean, look, man, we've led big churches. I'm not against big churches, but my heart always will go for those guys. And so
small beginnings.
Yeah, so God marries all that together for me. lets us build a ministry where we're able to go into churches 200 and smaller for free. We have donors that have helped fund it, and they have on average 30% attendance bump of non-members that come because this is such a felt need.
Yeah, it is.
So we're able to help families. I can help that pastor raise awareness in his community. Out of that,
be a safe place for him.
Be a safe place for him. Do a lot at the retreat at Church Creek along with Greg Surratt, and 100%. Meet a lot of those younger church pastors, building those relationships. And so, like, our dream is to change the conversation around mental wellness in our country.
Yeah.
And to, like, this could be the church's finest hour because we have the answer.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, Jesus offers something better if we can learn how to put the right language around it, quit being so prescriptive and start being more validating about these issues, and then give people tools. We have 42 tools that we've developed, books, video, classes, all kinds of things. We're just trying to get tools in people's hands because I think this could be the church's finest hour. And I tell church planners and church leaders all the time, hey, man, you may not want to talk about this, but everybody in your church is talking about it. They're all talking about my kid's struggling, what do I do? So we're just trying to give some practical ways that they can connect, help people disciple their kids in the language of mental wellness. And
Pastor Chris and I were talking the other day, and we were talking about student ministry and reaching the next generation. And he was saying how there is nothing more important to a parent right now than that teenager, that child. And so are we doing everything we can to help that parent help those kids, whether they're in church, they're not in church, they're in a healthy place, they're not in a healthy place, but you love those who the people you love.
Right.
And that's their kids. And so you've taken a real interest in kids and teenagers and that parent side of thing. Tell me about that a little bit, because I know you have a whole team now that's developing resources, helps, additional things that people need when they're in that crisis moment where you're panicking, but then also how to sustain those healthy relationships with your teenager. Because it gets a little intimidating.
It does. And so we do a parenting seminar that we call Go Be School, but it's a parenting seminar where I tell them, listen, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I do know about these issues. And I will give you 5 practical ways that you can begin to make progress with your child in the area of their mental wellness if you'll do these 5 things. And I'll teach them to you in an hour and a half of us getting together. And we promote it in the community and within the church. Folks come in and we do this seminar, and we give them a bunch of the tools out of it. Then give them an opportunity to get exposed to a lot of other tools that we have, and we're still developing them. We're just about to begin a monthly subscription kind of service where you can, for a very nominal fee, every month you'll get a new tool. And I'll tell you,
like a refresher every month.
Yeah, because people need bite-sized chunks. Right, and I'm not promising perfection, it's progress, right? We need progress. I've hit most of the major networks around Texas when school came back this year because of Uvalde. And the thing is, these things, non-political, they're going to keep happening in the world we live in. And so we don't want to react to them. We want to build a culture of peace in our home. We want to teach our kids resilience. We don't, you and I grew up in the don't be a baby generation. Rub some dirt on it. It was my bad, But now we have a generation of, oh, you poor baby. We're making our kids victims. And so we're trying to teach them how to build their identity.
Paralyzing.
Right. And they have no resilience because they don't have to. So let's teach them how to be resilient. Not that it's not hard, but you can do hard things because God is with you.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Unscripted. We just want to take a brief moment to say thank you to the Wesleyan Investment Foundation for making this episode possible. For over 80 years, they have been helping churches and church planters with their borrowing and investing needs. If you're dreaming about a new project for your ministry or how to invest the resources you already have, we think Wesleyan Investment Foundation can help you. Check out this brief video to learn more about what they do.
So I started off in youth ministry, and I was a worship leader, and I did that for 4 or 5 years. And then my wife and I just really felt like the Lord was calling us to start the church, which was a huge step for us. We felt like the Lord was calling us to Columbus, Ohio. And so we moved our family with just this dream, this desire to see something new in a city like Columbus begin. We had a few friends with us and our family, and the Lord just started really to open incredible doors. We built a team up of about 40 people, partnered with an incredible organization called ARC Churches, and really were trained by them and learned what was possible. And we opened our doors on April 3rd, 2011. We saw 430 people walk through the doors that very first Sunday. 43 people were saved on day one. And literally ever since that first day, our church has grown and grown. We're now celebrating more than 33,000 people who've filled out a Connect card and said, I am making a first-time decision to follow Jesus. It has just been absolutely mind-blowing what God has done through Rock City Church. We launched our church in a movie theater. Not many churches at the time in 2011 were doing that, in our city at least. 2 years in, we were in 2 different movie theaters in town. Within 6 months of launching our second location, we were in 3 locations, but they were all mobile. We didn't have permanent roots. About 5 years into our church, and we really started to sense that we needed to put down deep, permanent roots. And so for us, that meant either looking for something to purchase and renovate, or buying land and building something from the ground up. The challenge for us, even though we were a growing church, we had a couple thousand people at the time, we just didn't have enough history for a traditional lender to feel comfortable backing our church in the way that we needed a lender to back us. And so it was actually a phone call that I made. I reached out to a pastor friend of mine in another city. And I asked him, I said, tell me your story. How did you manage to move from being a mobile church to building the many campuses that I've watched you over the years build? And he said, WIF. I made a call to WIF. We sent over our financials. Then about a week's time, we were sitting face to face and talking with somebody. And the reason that we love this partnership is because we are engaging the same mission. So our mission statement at Rock City is, we exist to make heaven full. What I love about WIF is, that's your mission too. You might say it differently, but the kingdom-minded partnership, it matters to us. It's made all the difference. When we engaged WIF, we were able to build our very first broadcast campus. We also, at the same time that we were renovating another campus, a smaller campus in the heart of our city, and the Columbus Dream Center. So we were doing 3 projects at once, and WIF was really the wind in our sails to help us accomplish all 3. When we moved into our broadcast campus, January 2019, our church more than doubled in size day one. It was incredible. That relationship between Rock City Church and WIF that started that day, it truly has made all the difference in the world for us.
What about, so tell me about when you wrote Toby the Goby.
Yeah.
So tell me about the book. Tell me about that.
Yeah,
You got the story. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so creative. I don't know anybody who's done that.
It's crazy, man. Again.
And you're a man's man.
Yeah.
You Texas, man. It's boots and barbecue and let's go get in the wagon. And here you are writing a children's book that really speaks to everyone.
Yeah.
With the art and all the elements around it.
It's crazy.
It is wild. When you first told me, I was like, what are we doing?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because what happened was, and I know this happened to you. I don't know if you'd admit it, but I will. This was a 5-week series to introduce these concepts. I thought it was 4. I thought we were doing 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden in week 3, I went, hang on, they're telling me we got 2 more weeks. What am I going to do? And so I had written that last chapter about this goby fish. I went to YouTube, this is silly, and found a 6-minute video on how to draw a cartoon fish. And I sat there all day, one day, 2 legal pads, and just
You're such a creative.
And stop it.
You
And
know that?
So I called my creative people.
You're a creative.
Well, I'm making this up out of panic at this point. Called my creative guys and said, give me 5 easel boards on the stage And I'm going to tell a story of a fish. And they said, goby? And I go, yeah, what are you calling it? I said, well, my name's Toby. It's a goby. Sounds like Jesus to me, right? And so they said, you can't draw? I said, oh, I can too. I've been on YouTube all day. So I still have the original drawings. I drew this little picture of this fish, Toby the goby, that said 3 things. You can do hard things because God is with you. You have to keep your eyes on the sun. And number 3, you can help others along the way. That was the story. And I told it. People went crazy. Again, we're early, the pandemic hits a month later. My daughter-in-law, who is a world-class graphic artist, I mean, Disney's tried to hire, other people tried to hire her to do projects. Well, her dream since she was a kid was to illustrate a kid's book. Well, the pandemic hit, and I said, hey, we got time. How about
let's do it?
Let's do it. And so she drew the pictures, and I told the story, and we went and got it printed, and we literally couldn't keep on the shelves. And all it became really was a platform.
Yeah.
So now kids want to draw the fish.
Yeah.
Now we have a kids version of the 40 IMs. Now we're teaching parents how to teach the kids those principles. See how it's all just snowballed forward. We're teaching parents, how do you assess where your child is? Like, what kind of questions can you ask at the dinner table to know where your 7-year-old is? Yeah. So we've learned, it's stuff that I've done for 20 years because it's been my fight,
Yeah, it's so good.
So, like, I'm the story of, I went to hell, man. I mean, it was, and God uses it. Yeah. Dude, and I'm going to be 60 this year.
You got me by a year.
Yeah.
You got me by 1 year.
My wife, both of my kids, my daughter, who has fought this issue, genetically, I think, predispositioned, we all get to do this together.
Yeah.
And I would have never dreamed it up, man.
I would not have. I would have thought I thought you'd have probably led that church for another 10 years.
Yeah.
But man, I just, you could see God is in it.
Yeah.
And you talked about those 3 things that Goby learns or develops. And it was interesting as you were talking about it, I thought, man, that's really the cure for anxiety.
Right.
When somebody is living in anxiety or they're living in whatever state it is that may be happening, whether it's the trauma, the pain, the hurt, the bitterness, the unforgiveness, things that have happened to them that should never have happened to a person. And and they always say that the way out of your problem is not when you absorb yourself into your problem. That so often it is, like those 3 things you talked about.
Yep.
So if someone is out there fighting those negative thoughts, the anxiety, the super depression, the mood swings that happen, even the things that are, you hear the terms where there's the bipolar changes in a person, the ups, the downs, all these different things. How do those 3 things apply? Because I think those 3 principles are incredible.
Yeah, think about it. So take a big circle of people who, man, life's just been hard, right? You lose a job in a pandemic, or your marriage blows up, whatever. And so there are things that either depress you or make you anxious. That's a circle. Then take a circle of bipolar, clinical issues. People ask me all the time, they'll go, what do you have to be anxious about? I go, nothing. It's called a disorder. I think stuff up. That's what it is, right? So where those circles intersect, there's a majority are people in that middle section where those circles come together, right? What we designed is for everybody in that intersecting circle. Some people need medication. Some need to go to treatment centers with bipolarism, some of that. But everybody, no matter where they are on that spectrum, if they will develop a mentality that says, I can do hard things because I'm not doing it by myself. See, what happens is people go, well, I feel alone. Well, your feelings, you need to feel them, but it's a terrible steering wheel for your life. So no, this is hard. But
steer you right over the cliff.
But somebody's with me, right?
Yeah.
So, and then secondly, it's like, man, if I keep looking at my problems, they're going to get bigger. And if I look at God, He gets bigger, and my problems get small. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And then 3, and this is our heart connection. It's like the greatest movement outside of the local church, which was born out of the local church, is the recovery movement. And the recovery movement teaches biblically that the way you get better is by helping somebody else. And the hardest thing to do when you're hurting is to care about anybody but you hurting.
Yeah.
So if you fight the urge to be human, I think, like, Dino, I can help you much more saying, hey, I'm me too, I'm struggling with that too, much more than, oh, I used to struggle with that. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why my book for adults is called Not Yet. It's like you do it in the not yet moments when you're not healed. You haven't gotten what you prayed for. I'm going to help somebody else, even in the middle of my mess, and God moves you forward. And so those three principles apply. It doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. They will put you in a better place mentally and emotionally because it's the Bible.
So you feel like there's just so many other resources for you to develop.
Oh, I mean,
thousands. I was going to say, think about all the energy you had when you planted that church, location, team, worship, kids, parking, signage. There's all these things when you start a church. And then you're sustaining church, got to hire staff, got to get a youth pastor, got to be able to make sure we're ready for Easter, got to think about through summer camp. And so transitioning, a lot of people think, well, then all that's gone. There's no more vision. There's no, and what you said was important from the very beginning is you're not working from something, you're working to something. So what's encouraging to me, and I think what should be encouraging to everyone in a twofold way, is not only what you're doing, but is what you're doing.
Yeah.
That now all of a sudden now there's vision, there's ideas, there's all these opportunities to help these church planters, young guys, other pastors, and then there are other dreams. So you feel the dream and vision back up in your soul.
Yeah, if Micah was sitting here right now, she would look at you, and her quiet, but she would say, this is his greatest season. I have not seen him this energized in 20 years because he's getting to use all of his experiences, good and bad, for the last 20 years. This isn't the end of anything. And look, man, I love the local church, Dino. I've given my life to it.
Yeah.
But getting to help the capital C church through local church pastors, man, there's something fulfilling that I get to do that I've never gotten to do before. And getting to partner with lots of different networks and groups to just be another resource, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we have a unique voice. I don't think it's the only voice, but it's a unique voice in this area that who would have known 27 years ago when I'm trying to run into a bridge, that God would, golly, man.
Yeah, praise God.
I mean, just overwhelms me because I know me.
Yeah.
And I know where I've been. I know I'm one decision away from being in a bad place again.
Sure.
I don't live scared, but I'm aware. And to get to do this is like, can I cry? We sit in hotel rooms and just go, can you believe God lets us do this?
Here we go.
And who would have ever dreamed, man, that when we made that painful decision, man, to let go of what we'd given most of our adult life to, that God would just burst something new for us that's like, oh my goodness.
Sam Chan always talks about, and he's great with these successions and transitions, helps all of us. And he's a gift to the body of Christ. But he talks about one of the things, he talks about so many things, but he'll talk about is you can't go forward, you can't transition, and you can't have a secession at a church, if there's not a future.
Right.
I mean, if not, then you're just going to keep, the ghost of Toby is just going to keep living in what you built.
Yeah.
And I have seen, and I don't think it's out of anyone's wrong heart, but I've seen because there is not a future, that you can almost destroy the very thing that you gave so much of your life to. You can almost undo all that you've done, and you can tear down what you sacrificed and served by not being able to go into the next future, which takes faith, which takes a measure of trust, which takes change. Sometimes the older we get, the less we want to change. Right. And so the future, has called you, and I'm so proud because I've seen so many people who just they didn't want to do it. They just didn't want to do that, and your voice is needed, your gift is needed in the body of Christ, and with so many pastors that would love to sit down with someone who's done it,
Yeah.
who's figured out another campus, who built a building, who bought land, who had to fire somebody, who had to hire somebody, all those kind of things. And so that's a big part of what you do too, is you're fathering, and you're an uncle, and you're a big brother in a lot of different expressions to pastors.
Yeah, something clicked in me about 5 years ago, and I was developing our young leaders and developed them as teachers. And one of them was teaching on a Sunday. I was sitting there in the front row, and we left, and I looked at Micah and I said, I'm having more fun cheering him on than I was doing it myself. I mean, there was just a satisfaction that came, and that began to shift in me. And the privilege I have, it's guys that you and I both know, we were talking about some of them before we started today, that have said, hey man, can you be an overseer? Can you help us? Nothing official, just wanting me to be a big brother, a spiritual dad to them. That is so fun to me.
Yeah, it is.
Because I got a lot, I can help them not pay dumb tax. Wisdom is just dumb tax. It's just like, hey man, I did that. That hurt. Don't do that.
Dumb tax, man. Oh my Lord.
Yeah. And so being able to just finish their sentences, say I've looked so many of those guys in the eye and said, hey, look at me. You're a good man. This is supposed to be hard. You're not doing something wrong. If you were a better leader, it still would be hard.
Yeah, it would.
Because that's the big lie, right? If I was so it's just stuff you and I have felt. You can call it out in younger guys, and you can just see the relief come on their face.
I was in with a young couple this weekend. I know you're on the road a bunch down. You go to church, and they begin to apologize because we didn't hit this song and this transition. And man, there was a child up front, and playing around while I was preaching. And it was just, I said, whoa, why are you apologizing? This is the church. This is we're all learning.
Yeah.
We're all growing. We're not perfect at this. It's a little messy.
Right.
It's just going to be a little messy. And they kept trying to say, some Sundays are better. I said, this is a great Sunday. And you're 3 years old. You've only done this about 140 Sundays. I mean, you're new to the community. You're doing it with people. So you're trying to get them not to feel like, okay, I got to build all this church tomorrow.
Right.
It's got to be done in 24 hours. The beauty of building a church is in the building of the church.
Right.
And we get to see that now because we've been in it a long time. And I think one of our roles is definitely to come alongside of that planter, that pastor, and say, hey, calm down.
Okay.
God's in control.
Yeah.
God's got this. Lead well. Don't there's no excuse for a mess. Don't be messy.
Right.
Don't be lazy. Don't be lethargic. Don't be apathetic. But calm down and do what you can do right now. And it's like it does bring some encouragement, to them when we can speak into those moments and not have to be the main event. You go speak at these churches, you feel like you're just there kind of to come alongside of them and kind of woo, and those kind of things. And I bet you're loving that right now.
I love it. And don't forget our wives.
Yeah.
Right? We were on the East Coast. We were having coffee with a pastor. We just met him. We'd come in to do this parenting seminar and did some targeted marketing in this area to help raise some awareness. And we sat there and we walked to the car 30 minutes later and I said, hey, Micah, she needs you. She said, what are you talking about? I go, man, I just have a sense, man, that she needs somebody like you in her life. And 2 days later, they started texting. She texted, and they start texting back and forth. And when we were there again a month later, because usually we go do one event and they want us to come do another one.
Sure.
She said to Micah, you're the big sister, the kind of mom figure that I've been looking for. Here's the thing, getting a wife that's been in ministry, partnering with you in ministry, partnering in this way, the satisfaction and the way it connects your marriage in this season, that we're getting to do this part of this together, it's really hard to describe. And I got teary-eyed, I always do, but I got teary-eyed at ARC this year as Pastor Chris was talking about investing in these younger pastors. But it disheartens me that so many guys think they have to be Pastor Chris. You know, I mean, who am I, man? I mean, I'm not leading.
You got more than you think you do to contribute.
And there's so many guys our age that it's like, hey, man, if you really want to find some satisfaction in the next season of your life, whatever God calls you to do, make sure a part of it is just find some younger guys in your area.
Yeah.
And just
be
be their friend.
Yeah.
And you will find so much satisfaction in just being able to, you know, a ton of these guys I talk to, they've never had someone look at them and go, hey, you're a good pastor. I'm really proud to see you doing this. Just affirming them. Yeah. It's like watering a plant. And getting to be the guy to do that is, I mean, it's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, more people need it. And you know, a lot of times you're sitting around, well, nobody's doing that for me, and I'm waiting on it to happen. And I think there comes a point where, you know, don't wait on anything else. Go ahead and be it.
Right.
Start being it. Let me kind of change topics for a second before we get done. You've had some, because of how God has opened these doors with mental health, opened these doors with talking to people with trauma. I'm talking about severe challenges, hurts, pain, terrible, bad things have happened in their life. And as a pastor, sometimes you don't feel equipped.
Right.
You're not clinical. You don't write prescriptions. But I mean, you're talking to people that are suicidal.
Yes.
People that are on the verge, and help a pastor who sometimes finds themselves in conversations or having to try to meet needs, but they don't feel equipped because they're not experts, they're not brilliant in that area. But sometimes that's not what people are looking for. Of course, if it's a suicide, things like that, you want to get help, and you do everything you can to get other people involved with that 100% immediately. But what do you say to a pastor who says, man, I don't feel equipped even, when this happens, I clam up?
Right. Yeah, I tell them two things. Number one, a part of your role in that community, that church community and the community you're in, is for you to go find someone of expertise that can be a reference point.
So build some resources.
Yeah, you've got to have somebody that when that person comes to your office and it's above your head, that you can call and say, hey, just 5 minutes, here's what happened.
So that's one of the first things you should do.
And then number two, because I pastored so long in a local church, I understand that. So we built a resource page. You can go to beagobi.com, and there's a page for churches where here's all the online counselors that are out there. You know, that's one of the great things about the pandemic. We found out online counseling works. So we vetted some of these organizations.
Yeah, man, that's a great
resource. We have over 100 lay pastors that we trained here at Cross Timbers that wanted to go through a training, to be certified, to be a lay counselor, to kind of assess where people are.
Yeah.
And so they have open times online for free. And we offer that. That link is on that page. So we have a whole list of everything from suicide prevention lines all the way down to online counselors to pastoral counseling. Because again, if I'm you in a local church, I just need the resources. My heart's in the right place.
You feel this pressure, you got to fix everything, you got to say everything. What you're saying is, hey, identify resources and then try to empower those resources to help the people. Don't go it alone.
Yeah, and don't try to make something up. Like, don't. So I've said to people before, and I've told guys that I talk to right now, listen, you have somebody in your office and they're struggling and you're not sure what to say. Pull out this resource page. Say, hey, I want you to call, or I want you to go online to ... and I want you to set up an appointment, and then a week or 3 days from now, let me know what they told you. And that's a way you can be accountability and push them.
Yes, it almost sounds like shepherding.
Yeah, it's like you're shepherding. You don't have to be a mental health expert.
Yeah.
And if there's a question, hey, we're going to call the suicide hotline right now. You said this. Which indicates to me that there's a reasonable possibility of this. So let's call these guys and talk to them right now in my office.
Yeah.
Right? And so I always want, you want to have like all of these safety nets around for you so you're free to love and pastor and shepherd your people. And sometimes just getting the right resource in their hands is the best thing you do have.
You know, a lot of people are struggling with addiction.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, I've noticed more and more the last couple of years how much people are struggling for sobriety. Mm-hmm. And that journey is real. And a lot of times the church it's hard to sort that. Thank God for freedom, recovery,
Right.
celebrate recovery. What we've seen with freedom, I know at Highlands we do freedom, and not afraid to deal with it, not afraid to face it, not afraid to talk about it, not afraid to get in there with somebody. Believe God for deliverance, believe God for the process, believe God for the power of the Holy Spirit, and then walking with you through that.
Right.
Let's walk through this thing. What have you seen with that, and how do you feel like that you're more in tune to help that now more than ever?
Well, I pretty much, I have men that came to see me quite often, or they call me, and I ask them, well, how much are you drinking?
Yeah.
Or how much are you this? And they, oh, no, not pastor, And then when we talk for a while and they figure out I'm not judging them, I'm
here to help you.
Then they'll begin to tell me what they're doing. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to refer them. If there's a Celebrate Recovery in the area, I'm going
Yep.
to send them there. If there's an AA and not a Celebrate Recovery, I want to send them there. And like, we just need to get more free as leaders in our communities with these issues of referring people to good organizations, not
Yeah.
perfect organizations,
Of
but good
100%.
organizations that have a
To come alongside.
that have a track record, and then like normalize the battle for your freedom. Like, you're
That's
not a bad Christian because you began to medicate with something that's gotten a little bit of control in your life. You're just you're going to tap into a power that you have to get help to get to a place of freedom, and we got to give people hope.
Yeah.
See, the problem is when it comes to mental health, when it comes to addiction, we already feel bad. I don't like
mega stigma.
Sure, I already feel condemned.
Yeah.
And so when the answer is, well, just read your Bible more, pray harder, be more spiritual, it just makes me feel worse about myself.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel better. So how about we say, hey man, life is hard, and Jesus offers you something that's better than the choices that you're making.
Yeah.
And he's not disappointed in you. He's not mad at you. He just wants to help you. Let's go join him on the journey. Can I help you along that road?
Yeah.
And people they respond to that.
Yeah, I remember Pastor Chris said when he went to Birmingham, he's starting a church. Like, you're a church planter, I'm a church planter. Said like one of his first men's groups, he's like, okay, what curriculum do I use? What book? He just decided to go around there and say, how y'all do it?
Yeah.
And it was like 10 weeks later, finally everybody opens up.
Right.
Everybody's got issues. Everybody's got problems. And just there was healing in that conversation. And now, hey, now together, let's open up the Bible. Now let's start praying for each other, because now there's a vulnerability, there's a transparency. We're going 100%. Now, and it was just funny how, it was like, what curriculum did I use? Oh, I think I'll just ask everybody, how are you doing?
Right.
And it was like that triggered so many conversations and so much freedom. And I think that is huge today. When you're able to listen and know that, hey, I'm there. And then what you said is true, Toby. And I think with resources that you're developing, the things that you're passionate about, it mutes that stigma.
Right.
Say, hey, listen, because you just think you're going to be the only one in the room struggling.
Right.
Which is not true. Or you think that if I let you know what I'm struggling with, everyone's running from me.
Right.
When really in the body of Christ, what is true is I believe there are godly believers that will run to you.
Right.
And you're seeing a whole army of that.
I'm watching people, when I say let's change the conversation, I'm trying to build an army of people to change that conversation, right? So one of the things that we do that gives me chills is when I teach on the weekends and I do a message about here's the 3 lies that I fight to not believe when I'm struggling for my mental health. And so I take everyone through these 3 lies, and at the end, I get pretty emotional, as you can imagine. And at the end, I ask everybody to close their eyes and bow their head, and I say, look, man, I've sat up here and cried like a little girl at recess. If I can do that, if you're struggling, could you raise your hand?
Yeah. God.
And then but here's what I say. I watch these hands go up, and then I say, okay, if you didn't raise your hand or stand up, however we do it, keep your eyes closed. But if you raised your hand or stood up, I want you to open your eyes and look around. And you watch the tears, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not just me.
Because they're probably thinking I'm the only hand
They
in
think
the
they're
room.
the only hand. The whole point of doing it is for them to see there's a whole room of us that could, like, we could fight this battle together if we just got honest about where we were. And it's crazy. And I don't care if I'm in a mega church or in a church plant. When you watch, 50, 70% of that audience either stand or raise their hand and look around and discover for the first time they're not the only one.
Yeah.
Man, you talk about some healing that comes in that moment.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you a question. For right now, pastoring a church, now doing it, what does healing mean to you?
Healing to me is not an event, it's a process.
Yeah.
That as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to be healing. And I'm going to experience new levels of freedom.
Yeah.
Right? That God is always going to specialize in using my weakness, not my strength. That's Pauline theology, 2 Corinthians 12.
Yeah.
Nobody wants their life verse to be mine. Mine is 3 times I prayed and God said no. My grace is sufficient.
Yeah.
That's my story. But God uses your weakness. And so healing to me is giving myself to the process of becoming as free as I can possibly be in this moment of this day.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a I have arrived mentality. It is a process of becoming, not a state of being.
Yeah.
And it will happen until I take my last breath.
Yeah, that's good. I had somebody ask me one time, they said, man, are you going through a restoration? And I remember I thought, well, man, it sounds like it's a program.
Right.
And I was like, and I remember saying to this person, I said, I'll probably be going through some form of restoration the rest of my life, whether it's as a husband, as a dad, as a friend, all these different areas of my life that I want to continue to be restored into the image of God, into the sonship of Jesus, into the lordship of Jesus Christ, which is a everyday surrender, obedience. And so again, we're not saying healing, restoration is the event. It's the happening of the Holy Spirit.
Right. And there's
the happening of the Word of God.
else to heal. There's always another layer to peel back. There's always a process of becoming. In other words, like, we're never going to be at a place where we don't need a Savior. Right?
Never.
It's not being saved from hell one day in eternity. It's like living in hell tomorrow without Jesus helping us.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I am acutely aware of my desperate need for Jesus, or I would live in hell of this disorder.
Yeah, it'd be hard to make it.
Yeah.
It'd be real hard to make it. I feel that way. It'd be hard to make it without that dependence and knowing that He is sovereign and I'm going to trust Him to get to the other side.
Well, and you and I
and
both,
my family.
Yeah, and you and I both, I don't know if you've thought about this, but like, I think, look, there's not a day goes by that I go, God, thank you for letting me have a panic disorder. I don't say that.
Of course.
But I do think a lot about the empathy I have and the sensitivity I have to other people's pain that I don't think I would have ever had if I wouldn't got in touch with mine.
You got to believe Romans 8:28 is alive and well. It's living. It's happening at this very second in all of our lives. And I don't like the road that has brought me to certain things, but I have decided that if I'm there, then Romans 8:28 is going to be at work.
Yep.
And I am going to see God do things, and the empathy you have when someone is in pain or someone is standing in front of you weeping. Had a lady stop me at church the other day and she began to describe something going on in her family. And I immediately felt, the Bible says Jesus was moved. I felt a moving of compassion because our family had similar struggles with what she was describing. And you're like, so you were touched at a different level.
Yeah.
And I think that's what your story's about now, that's your next season. How do people find out about everything that you offer now to people? And what's interesting is it's just not in the church, it's you're being tapped in a lot of other circles because this is affecting everybody.
Yeah, we're getting to go to fraternities and sororities on college campuses in very secular environments, and getting to do events with
It
business
becomes
people.
evangelistic.
Yeah, because all of a sudden business guys are figuring out, hey, like my bottom line is affected by the mental wellness of my employees. If I can give them some mental health, our business, so we're getting those chances.
I bet.
You go to BeAGoby, BeAGoby.com, BeAGoby.com. Everything we offer is there. You can find in our resource pages, sign up for our newsletter there. We'll send you some monthly encouragement.
Yeah.
Almost everything there is about mental wellness, but mental wellness is, it's lots of different things in our lives. And if you just go to beagoby.com, you can find everything.
So the next decade of our life is going to be awesome.
Man, I think it's going to be great. I can't wait. I got lots of dreams in my heart, man. Lots of ways that I want to try to help people individually and help pastors and churches, especially church planners. And
I appreciate that.
I'm so
You're a good resource.
You're
a good resource.
I want to be a guy that guys look back and say, hey, man, our church, like it did better because he invested in us.
Yeah. And we're going to smoke some meat.
We're going to smoke a lot of meat and eat it.
Hey, and eat the best bacon I've ever eaten in my life.
Candied bacon. Come on, Tammy.
When I came and spoke for you that day, I remember I bragged on the bacon for to this day.
Yeah. Tammy Faye, who did all that day, that's a huge point of pride. She'll go, talk to Dino, what she said about the bacon.
I love you,
You know
Toby.
what she's doing
What's
now?
that?
She is running the Hope Center, our Dream Center.
That's right.
She's running the whole thing.
Oh, my gosh. Well, they're eating good.
Oh, they're eating.
And they're being loved on and cared for well.
Hey, man, I love you.
I appreciate
I'm so
you.
grateful for what you're doing. I know God, He divinely put you in this place in this moment. You're the man for this, man.
Well,
and I'm always in your corner.
I'm humbled, and like you, we have good wives, and
no doubt,
good people around us, and good friends. I don't know where I would be. I think I do know where I'd be if it wasn't for friends.
Yep.
I mean, I pray. I'm like Mr. T. I pity the pastor who doesn't have a friend, because you will need one.
Yep.
You will need a friend. And I've been fortunate to have good friends like yourself and others who, on my worst day, ran to me.
Yeah.
And you've been one of those guys. So I love you.
I love you.
Well, hey, we had such a great time filming this episode of Unscripted. If you want any more information on Pastor Toby Slough and his ministry, make sure to check out BeAGoby at beagoby.com. And also, if you're interested in learning more about planning a church or partnering with ARC, visit our website at arcchurches.com, and we would love to get you connected. Hey, thanks again for tuning in. This episode wraps up season 3 of Unscripted, and we can't wait to bring you another incredible season full of inspiring interviews and insights and a lot of resources that I think are going to help your church and help your ministry. So we'd love for you to stay connected through ARC and Dino Rizzo socials, and we'll catch you in the next season soon.